Okay, it's time for Drummer Nation Live. I'm a little late getting on because I had something went wrong the first time around. Please do me a favor if you're watching this, if you would tell me thumbs up or something that we're online. I hate to do this to people, but uh, I'd like to know. It's just something that matters. Um, it says I'm streaming now live. Okay. All right. I don't see where it's streaming live, but it says I am. So we're going to continue. Off to a rocky start. Please have somebody tell me that we're online, okay? It says live and recording, and I can only presume we are. So let's start the whole damn thing over again, and I'll get the show rolling with some spots. Please let me know if you're seeing this. Here's your chance to win some bronze from Istanbul Mehmet, the original handmade cymbals from Turkey. The prize includes 3 shiny black bell cymbals, a giant ride, a powerful crash, and oversized hi-hats. The Black Bell line features 2 sonic personalities in one cymbal. It's a punchy pairing. Check the link in the show notes for your chance to win.
Hello everyone, my name is David Victor. I'm General Manager with the Craviato Drum Company. We wanted to offer a one-ply, solid shell product, but we wanted it to stay true to our mission of offering handmade drums of uncompromised quality built here in the USA. So take a listen to our Center Stage Series drum set.
Memphis Drum Shop is the world's premier provider of percussion instruments. With 6 showrooms of gear, mycymbal.com, the Memphis Gong Chamber, and a first-rate repair department, turn to Memphis Drum Shop for all your percussion needs. Okay, with that, I believe we're live. I have at least one thumbs up here, so somebody's seeing this. Facebook has made some changes to the new Facebook, whatever that means. And I don't know what happened with the original one. I had a great intro that I'll try to recreate. Okay, now that everybody's staying home with COVID, a lot of people are streaming. I'm getting a lot of people asking me to solve the problems that we all face. If you're a drummer, you know that if you set up a microphone and set it up just for your voice, as soon as you play drums, everything gets blown to death. So we don't want to do that. And I had a math teacher once who would put problems on the board and say, well, here's one way to do it, because he knew there were a million different ways to do it. And that's what I'm going to offer today. Here's one way to do it. If you ask 10 of your friends who know this stuff well, they're all going to give you 10 different answers, and they may be entirely right across the board for all of them. So let's talk about a few things. First of all, the phone, the iPhone, I'm just going to deal with the iPhone and the Mac. Okay, I haven't been on a Windows machine in 15 years. If you pay attention to the routing and the concepts, you can just apply it to anything. Let's look at the phone, first of all. The phone, as everybody knows, has a great camera. Its audio capabilities are very lacking. And there are external mics you can buy that'll go into your Lightning port, but the problem is oftentimes they're not recognized by the streaming providers like Skype, Zoom, YouTube, Facebook, and so on. So we don't want to use the phone, and I'm not going to address the phone at all. I'm going to address the Mac. The Mac has great, much better audio capabilities, especially with what you can run into it, but it doesn't have very good video capabilities. So the first thing you might want to think about is upgrading your camera. That's not really the nature of this show, but that's a Logitech C922. They're about $100. It's what everybody's using. They're 1080, though Facebook's only 720, but they are very clear, and there's some software to work on the picture and all that stuff. That's not what you're seeing now. I'm using a phone going through a different way altogether. But you can't find them because everybody's streaming, and all these kind of things are very, 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 very hard to find. So let's just focus on audio. Obviously, the way to solve the audio issue is to have separate inputs for the various sound sources, so that I have a microphone that would be set for my voice. I need another microphone that would be set for the drum set, and maybe another input if I were bringing in tracks. So we're going to have some kind of third-party device that's going to bring that to the computer for us, and then we're going to have to route that to the streaming provider. And we're going to cover all that very quickly. Now, the first thing to talk about is what device that might be. There are a lot of ways to go in. I like the Zoom products. That's the Samsung Zoom physical products, recorders and such, not Zoom, the software you use to stream or to have meetings or teach or whatever. So the one I looked at and liked the best, and I have, is the Zoom H6. They call it a 6 because it's got 6 inputs. You see on the end is an XY stereo capsule, and it's got its own volume control on it. So that's the one we're going. By the way, this comes in an H4, an H5, and an H6. The 4 has 2 XLR combo XLR line inputs, where this one has 4, and it has an XLR, an XY capsule microphone, stereo mic on the end. The H5 has the same thing, but that capsule on the end is exchangeable for some other devices you can put on there, a shotgun mic. You can even buy a capsule that adds 2 more XLR inputs, so you would have 6. The H6 has 4, and then that other one on the end can be a lot of other different things. So I'm working with the H6, and when I get it put together, it's going to look like that. And we're going to go over each one of those, okay? So let's back up a second. The first thing you're going to need is a microphone. Any microphone will do. I like just a simple vocal mic. The standard has been the SM58 by Shure for 50 years. You need one with a switch, I think, because unless you can ride herd on the gain, I used to do some recordings for mycymbal.com where I would demo cymbals, the cymbals that they were selling. I did hundreds of them. But there was a tech guy there with me, and when I would talk, he would turn the gain up, and when I would play, he would turn the gain down. Okay? Does it have phantom power, Janelle? Yes, it does. So we're talking about that with the mic. So this is a dynamic mic I like to use. It's inexpensive, and it's along the lines of an SM58. It's a Samson made by Zoom Q2U, and it says USB mic on it, but it's got both. If you look underneath here, there is a XLR output and a USB output. So if you just want to stream to your friends or something, or to have one-way communication, you can put this in the back of your computer with USB, choose that as your audio, and you'd be fine. That's not what we're doing here, though. It also has a switch. The switch comes in handy because when I'm talking, I turn the switch on. When I'm playing drums, I turn the switch off, and we use other mics for the drums. Okay, so that's one mic. That's all you're going to need, and we're going to take a regular XLR cord, just like this, 3-prong XLR, otherwise known as a microphone cable. It's going to go into the mic on one end and into the XLR input on the Zoom, and I have it on number 1, you see. So the XY input on the top is listed as LR on the front of the device, left and right, and you see it's got its own volume control there. Set that for your drums and leave it alone. Then you take your XLR mic, put the switch on, arm the track. You have to arm the tracks. That's what all these red buttons are. Arm the track, set the volume for your voice. Leave that alone. The next one down on the left side of the device is the headphone jack. Come out of the headphone jack into your ears. Okay? Now, let's look at the other side. The other side is just a pair of 1/4-inch plugs that look like this. Okay? And on the other side of them is a little mini jack. A stereo, this is your headphone jack like you would see on the side of your computer. I'm trying to get you where you don't see this red one, just that one. Okay? If you have something different, you might need one of these for a bigger connection. Everybody's got these little doodads. Okay? So that's going to the little end's going to come out of your computer and into the H6 on the side. Where did I put that graphic of my H6? It's a lot to do here. Anyway, here's just a naked picture of the H6. This is the one I was looking for. So that red and black one on the top right, that's coming out of the computer. That enables you to play tracks on your computer. If you want to pull up a stereo track and play it, you're going to set the gain for those on the right with those tracks 3 and 4. In this instance, I have nothing in track number 2. If you wanted to have electronic drums, which I use a lot when I'm teaching, you can put that in to number 2 in this case. All right? So now you've got everything going into the Zoom, and you're going to use that. It also shows up as an audio interface. So the XLR, the USB out of the Zoom goes into the computer, where it will show up in your sound properties as an interface. So if I go to, let me show you my computer here. There's a lot of stuff open right now. But if I go to System Settings and I go to Input and Output for sound, you're going to see there is a setting there for the H6. I'm not using it right now, but that's where you would see that. What we want to do, though, in the computer itself is to select whatever your sound card is, because this is what's going to be sending the sound back to you from your tracks, or if you're doing a two-way communication with another person, you have to have that sound coming out of the computer into the H6 so it can go back into the computer to stream. I hope that makes sense. So you're going to pick internal speakers, which is internal to your computer, and then you're going to come out the headphone jack into the H6. If you have a different interface, like I have a Motu here, you're going to come set it at that and go out of that into the H6. I happen to be using a Rodecaster Pro, so we're going to leave that alone. But we're also, so the computer is set then. I think you can see me there, can't you? Yeah, you can. Okay, the computer is set to use that sound card, whether it's internal on the computer or the one that's going out of the computer. In any event, that's going into your H6. That's a mouthful. Now, in your streaming software, I have Skype pulled up here. That's going to be our example. Any software you use is going to have some audio and video settings. The video, you're going to set the Logitech camera if you have one, or this camera that's included in your computer. The audio setting now, my dog's barking and it just took my head right out of this. I'm looking at your, just to go back for a second, Janelle asked if the mic, it didn't matter what kind of mic you used. I showed you a dynamic mic. If you use a condenser mic, you'll need to set your Zoom to give it phantom power. That's in all the Zoom devices. You can do that per channel. So make sure you do that if that's the case. Now, I know what I was going to tell you is that inside this streaming software, you're going to have to pick your audio settings. So in this case, we would pick, I'm not on Zoom now, I'm showing you that I would pick the H6 to go to Zoom. All right. And now anything I send, you can see it's picking up that signal, but we're not on Zoom or Skype. So everything that's coming into the H6 is now going out through Zoom or Skype or whatever the one you're using is. Back to me here. And I hope this isn't getting too confusing for people. Okay, let's run it down again. Let me talk to you about these settings. In the H6, why can I never find where I put the H6? There's so many graphics here. Here it is. In the H6, there is another thing you'll have to look at, and that's the settings for the H6. You go into the settings, you go to the USB settings, and you set it to PC or Mac, audio interface. Audio interface, PC or Mac. Okay, so let's talk about the whole thing in a nutshell from the get-go. We're using a Zoom H6. Into the H6, we have an XY capsule that we will set the volume at for our drums. Into the H6, we have a microphone that we will set the volume for our voice. Into the H6 on the other side, we will bring in tracks, stereo, from whatever device we're using. In this case, it is the Mac, because we're trying to limit it to the number of devices. Out of the H6, we take on the bottom there, the headphones on the left, and the USB cable to the computer. In the H6, you set the set the USB audio interface instead of recording to the memory card, you're going into the computer. In the computer, in settings, you use your internal sound card or any other USB interface you may have set up, and listen to that. I'm sorry, you use that to send the in the computer, you use the internal sound card, whichever one you're using, and you come out of that into the right side here of the Zoom. So that's your tracks, and that's anybody speaking to you on the other side. And that's the setup, okay? I have some questions here. Phil says, great show. Thanks, Phil. I appreciate that. If I've lost anybody, look into it and maybe rewind it. It'll be in post, and you can check on all this. But if you remember the paths, the signal path, you know, the routing, it's the same no matter what you use. All the sound into the Zoom device into the computer, anything from the computer back into the Zoom as well. Set the computer for your internal interface. Set the streaming software for the Zoom. And you should have everything working that way so that when you play, and you can also bring in, as I said, the electronic kit too. So when I teach on Skype, I have a mic at my desk, like I'm talking into here, didn't mean to bump it. I have a mic at the kit, and I turn both of them off when I'm not speaking. I have mic on the drums, and I play those, and that's at the right volume, and I have the electronic kit coming in, and I can play that, plus I can hear the other side. Now, you do have to throw a little money at this, and if you're teaching a 12, 13, 14-year-old kid on the other side of things, they're liable to not have this. So there isn't really a way around that other than you have to spend a little money to do this. Okay? There are other ways to do it, but this is the one I wanted to talk about. A few things about, just in general, I wanted to go over about how to look better and sound better. With regard to the camera, we talked about that. You're also going to want to think about lights. You can buy a little light like that. They're under $20. I'm using one now in front of me. Manfrotto makes a nice little one and a little pixie stand. You can buy really much better lights, and these are still under $200 from Neewer, and they have power cord and they're dimmable and all that stuff. You can use that for your lighting. You just want to avoid certain things with lighting. Don't have backlighting. You can have mixed lighting with lots of natural light. You can have soft lighting is what you want, and the way you're going to gauge that is by skin tones, okay? Also check your white balance, because if you're wearing a blue shirt and it's green, you want to make sure that's correct. As far as the camera, you want it above, equal to or above eye level, because you don't want to be looking up somebody's nose and you don't want to be looking down their face. And the other thing you want to remember is if you have something in writing, I will oftentimes tape it to the computer monitor so that I appear to be looking at the camera. Right now I'm looking at the monitor, I'm seeing myself, but if I look up here at the camera, that's always better. Try to look at the camera as much as you can. So good skin tone, 3 to 5 feet in front of your background. Make sure the background is lit. Maybe you can do some things to deaden the room. Any of those things. We're not trying to go too far afield on this, just trying to get it to work. As for the microphone, the closer to your voice, the better. The closer, the better for voiceover. Okay, so I have a condenser mic here, and it's right by my voice. Condenser mics give you a little more freedom to move and still keep your voice the same. I do have it running through a condenser, though. We're not going to get into all the other sound stuff like EQ, reverb, compression, limiter, noise gates, all that stuff. We're just trying to get everybody set for Skyping or going on to FaceTime or not FaceTime, any of those other platforms aforementioned. If you're going to do it often, it's nice to have a set that remains as a set. I have a set here, and it's designed to help me accommodate what I do, so I have to make a few changes based on what I'm doing, but pretty much I just go into it that way. Okay, I think I've covered what I wanted to cover here. Another thing is, while you're on, if you're using Skype, there's a program by ecamm.com, E-C-A-M-M, called Call Recorder for Skype. That's like $39. And it will record your video and audio from you and the person on the other end and spit it out as combined videos, separate audios. It's really wonderful if you're editing. We're not covering that in this. This is for live. Pre-recording is a different thing, and then you're going to want to go into some kind of video editing software and look into things like shading and color matching and using vector scopes and all kinds of editing techniques that we're not going to get into today. So I don't see any more questions. I think I've got this covered. Sorry for the rough start. Let's get back to some Drummer Nation business. I'm going to be doing one pretty soon on the Zendrum, which is really cool. I love it. I have another one coming up with these guys, Kathy Rich, Buddy's daughter, and Greg Potter is her husband. I have one coming up with Phil Hood, and that's John Mahon, who is the percussionist, long-standing for Sir Elton John. And I think I mentioned earlier that Todd Zuckerman has a vocal album out that is just outstanding, and I did a full-blown interview with him that's published right now and getting plenty of hits. He's a great guy and so talented as a drummer, and some surprises now as a producer, songwriter, singer, the whole bit. What a talent. Okay, the next thing is Patreon. Please remember, if you like this stuff, I do all the shows for free, but you can help me out a little bit on Patreon. All right, if I don't have any other questions, there were some other things I didn't cover. You could use an iRig to do this. You could use an audio interface connected to a mixer. By the way, I'm using this big boy, the Rodecaster Pro, which does everything we talked about and more. Things like that. That's a sound pad I can just pull up. Happens to be a groove from BFD3 with Stanton Moore that we produced. Okay, I think that's all. I don't have any. Oh, I have a few other things I want to show you. My studio. This is a little nuts in here. I've got theatrical drapes on pipe and drape like you use at a trade show. I've got LED lights hanging from them with an RGB controller to control the colors. You don't need any of that stuff. Here's another view of it. I have soft lights on the top of me, which are soft boxes. I have other lights in front of me. And here's the crazy mothership right there. You don't need all that stuff. You can see there's an H6 in the middle of that. Okay? Here's an audio studio for 4 people that I did for a client. So that all gets a little nuts. Again, here's what we were talking about today. All right. I think I covered it. I was concerned about getting this straight because it's simple in one hand, but on the other side, it gets kind of confusing with all the routing. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to email me at info@drummernation.com, info@drummernation.com, and I'll be glad to answer your questions. If you really need help, I do some coaching very inexpensively. But most of you can probably handle this on your own. Okay, that's all I have for today. I think I got through it cleanly, and I appreciate you watching. Get out there and stream something, man. Everybody's doing it. There's no excuse not to. And there's no excuse to sound bad because we're in the sound business, man. It's a quote from Boogie Nights. If it looks like shit and it sounds like shit, it must be shit. People, by the way, will tolerate poor video way easier than they tolerate poor audio. Just remember that. And we're in the sound business. Okay, I hope that was helpful. I think I got it straight. And with that, I'm going to sign off as soon as I find it. Here we go. Thank you very much. See you next time. Sure appreciate it. No, it hasn't ended yet. It ends now.